thought that I'd get you on. So,
Well,
I,
I was gonna drop some real life lore about
oh,
Singularity.
go, go right ahead. I was trying not to be ambushing you or anything, which I kind of did. So I was trying not to keep you longer than you wanted.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's just, sometimes I get into my own head and it's like, hurry up and say what you have to say and just be quiet. But it's like, no, um, when it
That's part of what that, to be blunt. That's part of why I thought that I would ask you on because I know that you typically don't get on something like this all that much. So I just thought I'd go yoink.
well, you on the right day.
Good. Okay, so now go ahead.
So, yeah, writing Singularity. I don't, I don't think I've ever told anyone, but I've had Singularity as an idea for like 13 years. I've been sitting on it for a long time. And
It's been cooking for a long time.
yes, and I honestly did not in the beginning I didn't know what direction I wanted to take it in. I just knew that I wanted to write a story about a girl and her dog. And then when I got older and started like Mass Effect, I've mentioned it multiple times that Mass Effect is a huge inspiration for the development of Singularity, but it helped fine tune the ideas that I had in my head about this story that I wanted to write. And so playing Mass Effect and you're exploring the galaxy with all these different species and all these different planets and you visit places like Ilium and um the Citadel and all of that. And so when I went back to my book and my ideas, I just kept telling myself, make it bigger, make it bigger, make it bigger. What if it's not just a girl and her dog, just doing whatever? What if it's a girl and her alien companion doing whatever, and they are traveling the galaxy together? And when it
Hmm.
comes to writing, there is no if there's no conflict, no goal, something that the main character is not trying to achieve, then it's really not going to be an interesting story. So I had to figure out, what does this character want? What does Genesis want? And that's what took the longest to figure out, is what does Genesis want? Why are we following this character? What makes, because there's so many people that live in this universe. Why follow Genesis of all people? And usually, hero stories, they're larger than life, and there's all world ending world ending scenarios that they go from, and they come out successful. But no, I have found that people are more drawn to the everyday hero, you know um
Hmm. Yeah.
like
Not
the
it in part because I think it makes it so that it's easier for a person to identify with them and possibly put themselves in the shoes.
yeah. So Genesis actually was inspired by Ripley from Alien.
Huh. I can see that.
And um that everyday, just trying to make it, you know in a galaxy that's not necessarily welcoming or warm. A lot of people don't really know that in the Alien universe, Earth is almost basically uninhabitable, and it's basically a junk planet in Alien. And so she's on this crew and they're trying to make a living, and they're not the richest people. They're junkers. They find junk or they retrieve junk, and then they get money for the stuff that they find. So in that way, Genesis is an everyday kind of person. She's in this galaxy full of trillions of people from all walks of life, and she's not trying to be at the top. She's not trying to be a superstar or anything. She's just trying to live. And, she has her unique experiences and everything, but there's something about her that puts her in the direct line of fire, so to speak,
Hmm.
of what's coming to the Milky Way galaxy. And so without spoiling the rest of the series, um everyone likes that lead up, that build up to the fight of the hero versus the villain. And just gonna say this now. Every volume has its villain in this series, but they are not the main villain.
Okay.
So we're introduced to a villain in the first volume. We're introduced to another villain in the second volume, and then and so forth and so on. But she really gets put to the test in the final volume, and it's almost like someone being prepared to step into a role that they were meant to have without them realizing it. If that
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Hmm. It's kind of like the universe preparing them for the role.
Yeah, and so it's more, the plot of Singularity is more deliberate, um as opposed to the character just falling into these situations, and they have to find their way out of these situations that they just so happen to be find themselves in. It's more deliberate than that. She Her job puts her in the line of fire, and
Kind of literally.
yes, literally and figuratively. And so as the series goes on, you'll just start to see, um basically, what challenges her changes her. And she just wanted to, just have a normal life. But it's like, no, the what you're seeking requires you to change.
Yeah.
And that's how we get the story of Singularity, is her trying to attain to something. And I'm not going to spoil it. But there is there's something that she is striving for, and you can kind of see it in the first volume. It's kind of like off in the distance and kind of shrouded in a little bit of mystery. You can't really see it just yet. It's not focused,
Is
but
that is that the thing you told me that there's hints of that I'll need to pay attention for?
say that again.
Is that the thing you were telling me that there are hints of throughout the book that I'll need to pay attention to?
Yes and no.
Okay.
There
I'm trying not to spoil anything past chapter 4 myself. So
so
so yeah.
yeah, what she's looking for, or what she wants, is hinted at throughout the entire series, and it's in your face, but it's also not in your face.
It's like the person who's who is just in the background of a game that's there, but you don't necessarily see them. Might be what I'm getting out of that.
Yeah, pretty much, but instead of it being a person, it is
Well,
this.
yes, but
Yeah,
I'm just saying that it's there. You're looking at it, but you're not seeing
exactly.
it.
Exactly. And I intentionally um, kind of direct the reader away from it, because when you realize what it is, then you'll say, "Oh,
Okay,
that makes sense." It's there from the
cool.
from the first chapter. It's there, but yeah, you'll have to keep reading um, to figure out what it is that she's seeking. Because I know sometimes um, to try to drum up interest in like a movie or a video game, they'll tell you right away what the main character is looking for. And I kind of want what she's looking for, her goals, to be an organic experience for the
Hmm.
reader so that
And I just want to pop in here and say that I've read the entire first book. She does not flat out she's not come flat out and tell you anything about that. You learn what she wants and who she is through what she does and says.
yes, and that's very very intentional, because you are experiencing the story as Genesis is. And the way that I write it is, you're not in her head, you're on her shoulder.
Hmm.
So any actions that she takes, you don't know that she's going to take them. Um her reaction to things, it could be something that you expect her to say or do, or it's not. And that is supposed to keep the reader engaged and interested in Genesis. Like, why would she react like that? Why would she say this? Why would she do that in this situation? And then, of course, Genesis is not the only character in the, in the book. There are other characters in the book, and um, without going too far ahead and spoiling it for people, in the first volume, she will meet other characters that are important to
My
the
favorite
progression.
character, my favorite character has not been introduced yet, just so everybody knows.
Yes, by chapter two, his favorite character has not been introduced yet. Just for those that are listening in, um, Netcat is one of my beta readers. So, as he said before, he has read the entire book, and by the end of the book, his favorite character has been introduced. Um, but yes, there are recurring side characters that are both good and bad. Some have questionable intentions. Some, you don't know what they want, but they do find themselves in the same, I guess you could say, Venn diagram as Genesis. Sometimes their goals align, sometimes they don't. Sometimes their goals are in conflict with what she's doing, and she has to find a way around it. But yes.
Let's just say the enemy of my enemy is my enemy's enemy. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yes. Yes. Um and just just to be clear, Singularity is not it's not dystopian, and it's neither utopian either. Um there it's
It
20.
doesn't follow it doesn't follow either of those themes. From what I've seen, it's basically humanity just starting to get it introduced into kind of the quote unquote real universe that they haven't known about until the last 100 years ago or so, I think it is.
Yes. So in volume, I'm just going to say this now, in volume 2, you will learn more about humanity's history in the past century. So
Okay.
the book takes place in 2186, but in volumes 2, 3, 4, and until the main story is concluded, there will be bits and pieces of lore about humans' history, um, things that have happened on Earth that influence um, current events in the book. I mean, yeah, in the first volume, um, events that we have not that have transpired already that we haven't seen yet. Um, as a matter of fact, in the middle chapters of the first volume, um, one of the characters comes across something that may seem unimportant, but it actually becomes extremely important in later volumes. So when you read it, just read it very carefully. But there's a bit of lore that seems unimportant, but it's actually very important. Um,
All lore is important, in my
yeah,
opinion.
but yeah, all lore is important. But there's one particular, or actually two or three parts where it's mentioned, and the character is trying to figure out, like, who is this person, what are they talking about, what's going on, and then after it's mentioned a few times, it just seemingly goes away. But it's the sometimes what's important is hidden in what's unimportant in this book.
Okay. Hmm.
So it could be a throwaway line, it could be a passage, that is said haphazardly or passively by one of the characters, and then it resurfaces later. Um, so, yeah, circling back to the idea of humanity being the new kid on the block in this story. Um, I'm not sure if it's mentioned in the first book, but it will become more clear. There will be more context added to that as the series goes on. And we've already seen in the first volume kind of how aliens feel about people or about humans.
You have definitely brought that up.
Yeah. And so, yeah, like Neris in the first chapter, he had his prejudices towards humans. And he was honest with Genesis about how he felt about humans. He didn't trust them. He doesn't like them. He thinks that they're too impulsive and they're greedy. But he meets Genesis, and his opinion starts to change. And so, without bringing us back to our reality, we've all been there. you
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
that is a relatable experience. Uh, when people kind of keep their distance from you, but they hear things about you, they start to form an opinion, whether they like it or not.
Called
But
stereotypes.
right, but then when they actually interact with you, it's like, oh, so they're not like that. And they may not necessarily just have this, eureka moment and just totally change how they feel in that moment, but that seed has been planted. Maybe I was wrong. And so there'll be moments like that I hope people can relate to. Um there's I A part of the reason why it took so long for me to write the first volume, um, aside from, several deaths in the family and having to move and things like that, a part of the reason why it took me so long is because I wanted to get the emotional beats just right.
Not so.
Not so. Oh my
Oh,
God.
oh, okay, we don't trust each other. We're aliens to each other. But when do we start begging and healing the divide?
Oh my.
Someone has definitely been playing Mass Effect.
Yeah. Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah. So, when when I was writing each chapter, I wanted to make sure that there was something that pulled you in emotionally. And so I'm hoping, that's my hope. I can't say that everyone will be emotionally affected by what they read in this book. Um, but it's my hope that there are things in the first book that there's at least one thing that people can relate to. Um, and for those that have not read the entire book yet, sorry. I'm working as fast as I can on editing so that it can
Hmm.
be available for the general public and you can read it and again and again, hopefully. And each time you read it you get something different from it. But
And I'd like to toot my horn just a little bit here because when you were writing it, I was actually giving you editing notes.
yeah, yes you are, which I appreciate. But yeah, um the reason there were multiple delays on top of external circumstances,
Life.
yeah, I wanted to make sure that the emotional beats were right because I didn't want a Mary Sue.
And she certainly is not, at least in my opinion. And anyone who wants to do a search on Mary Sue on my Twitter, on my Twitter profile, will know that I have gone in depth about Mary Sue's. So I know a little bit about what I'm talking about.
Oh my gosh, not so. that's that's not in the first four chapters. That's the only thing available to the general public right now. They have no idea what you're talking about.
Still funny though.
I know.
I figured that wasn't enough of a spoiler for me not to show.
Yeah, well, when people tune in to see this, they're gonna be like, "Wait, what?"
Oh, and by the way, I'm actually intending to cut this interview portion out and to make a separate video with it.
Oh, okay.
So, and I'll send it to you too if you want to post it to your channel.
Oh yes, yes, I will. I absolutely want to do that. I do want to post that to my YouTube channel and actually post the link to the interview on my page on Twitter or X rather. Um,
Twix.
yeah, but yeah, I'm just I try to with my writing because, and I'm not knocking anybody. Just a disclaimer: I'm not knocking anyone. I'm not putting anyone down. But I've read books where you can tell that the writing was rushed or not much thought was given to the more, how can I say, how to put it, the parts where you want to anchor the reader to the characters.
I'll knock them.
I mean, it's ridiculous things like um my boyfriend is a fifth dimensional being with a great body, and it's so ridiculous. And I'm not saying that I've read something like that, but you can tell that the the writer didn't really give much thought to how can I endear these characters to my audience, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, it definitely does.
And so that's what I want to do. I want to, even though these characters are aliens, some are human, but others are aliens. I want them to feel alive. I want them to feel human to the reader. And So that's why it took me so long. I wanted to make sure that Genesis has her unique personality that stands out and it doesn't bleed into Tirak's personality. I wanted to make sure that Tirak has a distinct personality. Um, all the characters, like every single one, even if they're only in one chapter or they only have two or three, two or three passages where they're mentioned or they say something, I wanted them to have distinct personalities. And that's why it took so long for me to write it. I wanted to make sure that that was consistent, um, make sure that was consistent through the entire story. That Tiruk stays Tiruk. He doesn't start sounding like Genesis by the end of the first volume. And
Yeah,
Genesis, and she doesn't start to sound like Tiruk or any of the other characters that keep coming around, even because um, it's easy to fall into that trap as because you're the writer. You're the one person writing all these people. And you have to be careful not to make them all sound like each other.
yeah. And I'd mentioned that part of the reason why I was able to to read the to read the book with the characters and just easily give each of them a distinct voice is because each of the characters is distinct to me. So it's just okay, who's talking, and then I'm only vaguely choosing the tone that I'm using. I'm just going, okay, it's her, and then my voice just hits that same octave that I've been doing previously, because each one of them is a distinct character to me. So I'm basically reading them the way that I hear them in my head.
Hmm.
Oh,
Well,
and very right, not so. Everyone wants to write a badass, but no one wants to write the badass as flawed. It, and for Spud Studios, who is actually Couch Potato Gaming from that stream, you, what there is a lot you've missed. However, I am going to be cutting this part out and posting it as a standalone interview. So if you want to watch, if you want to rewatch that, then you can watch it that way. So yeah, and that's the favorite aspect of Singularity is the way it's written in style of my favorite genre of reading. We didn't explicitly say this, but Natsu has been one of the beta readers as well. That's why we were saying that yeah, you're not going to see that in chapter 1 through 4. So he also knows where everything's going, or at least for chapter 1. I mean volume 1. Okay.
yeah, and just to piggyback on what Natso just said about um, him, what he likes about Singularity is the style in which it's written. Um, yeah, that was an intentional narrative decision. Um, in the style that I wanted to write it. I wanted it to read a like a detective novel because that's the direction that I was headed in, or a detective comic book, rather. That's how I wanted it to come across. And so when it came to developing the dialogue um, and setting up each scene, I wanted to make sure that you could put yourself there before um, writing the dialogue or writing an action sequence. I wanted to make sure that the reader can get an idea of where the characters are. So, like in the first chapter, when they're approaching Hamathor and they're on their way to Perth City, I describe it before they get there so that you know what environment they're in. It's hot, red sand, blue sky, no clouds, sparsely populated, so that you know what they're dealing with. The inhabitants there, they're untrustworthy of foreigners. or people from off planet, and but they don't directly engage with those strangers. There's a part where Genesis has her hand on her hip, close to her firearm, because she knows that this is not a safe place. So there are physical cues. You have to pay attention to the physical cues in the writing for you to get a sense of how the characters feel in their environment. Um, and then, in the second chapter rather, when Genesis goes to Millennia, you get the feeling that she feels safe there because her hand is not at her firearm. Um, and she goes into the headquarters, and she doesn't feel alarmed. You don't get the sense that she's tense about, having to meet with the review board, but
Now,
outside of that,
I mean, in anybody who's had a job and after something bad has happened and you get asked to come in to talk about it, I think everyone knows that feeling.
yes. And so that is what I wanted for that's what I want for the audience. If you've had a job and something has gone wrong, and we all know things go wrong, then there's going to be times where it was so bad that you have to talk to upper management about it. You know that feeling, that sickening feeling in your stomach, like, oh my goodness, is this going to be the day that they fire me? And with the way that Genesis reacts to knowing she has to go in for this, you can tell she thinks, oh no, they're going to discipline me. They're going to fire me, or they're going to put me on restrictions. And, you know, that's the last thing that she wants. But it ties back to the first chapter when you first meet her.
Mm-hmm.
So when you first meet Genesis, she doesn't want to do the job, but she has to. Why does she have to take the job? And Tiruk, in his own way, he says, we need the money.
Yes. Mhm.
And so, even though she doesn't want to take the assignment, she takes it because she has no choice, really. It's like, okay, if we don't take this job, then what are we going to do? And it's a sizable amount of credits. Well, why do they need that many credits? So, just it's like trying to piece together a puzzle. You can't really see the image until you put the puzzle pieces together. And so, in the first two chapters, you can see where they're at. They're rangers in this ancient organization, and they need the money. Um, Her ship is falling apart, so that's part of the reason why they need the money.
Mhm.
If that wasn't clear by how the ship is described, loose fixtures. They're afraid if they go through the stream that their ship is just going to fall apart. So we're introduced to Genesis at a point in her life where things feel uncertain to her.
Now, now I always forget the hierarchy. They are currently rangers, right?
Yes.
What
So,
what is the hierarchy from bottom to top?
oh,
If you, I'm assuming you probably just have that in your head to rattle off. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and this is not a spoiler because I did drop some artwork um for the different main entities that are in Singularity. I did one for the B. I did one for the
Uh,
UF.
what one sec? I was actually just going to pull that up a little bit ago. Oh, that stuff is all in your highlights, right? Because I was thinking of actually showing some of that stuff if they pinned to your highlights on X.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
It's
so keep on talking, but I'll pull some of that stuff up to show.
Yeah, it's still on my Twitter. I didn't get rid of any of the artwork from Singularity or any of the conceptual images that I borrowed from Pinterest. All of that helps you visualize the world that they live, or the universe that they live in. Rather, it's very technologically advanced. Some of the technology is a little rinky dink. Some of the technology is a little bit more streamlined and smooth and minimalist, and so start to. I'll finish on this note and then go back to the GIB ranking. But um, as the story goes on, you will see that not everybody has access to the same quality of technology, and there's definitely a disparity, and you'll see it. But yeah, going back to the GIB and how they're ranked. So you in order to get into the GIB, you have to first apply. You have to qualify to be a part of the GIB, and you have to do a fitness test to see if you are physically able to perform the job, because they can't have people out there with health issues, physical health issues, um, in an investigation. Like if there's a maniac on, I don't know, robbing a bank or whatever, they have they have to be able to chase that person down. They have to be able to defend themselves. And so there is a physical test, there is an aptitude test, there is a uh there's also a cognitive test, and also they have to be evaluated psychologically to see if they are fit for what they are going to encounter, because it's almost like joining a police academy in that way. But of course, we know what to expect, with in reality on Earth, a dog, domestic disturbance, or what have you. But we're talking about the Milky Way galaxy, full of tons of species that could be openly hostile, or they'll see things that they have never seen before. They can be in situations that require them to be thinking on their feet. So once you're accepted by the GIB, you start off as a scout. That's the lowest ranking, is a scout.
Okay.
After you become a scout, you become a let me see. I don't I'm probably misquoting myself. Um you know what? Let me see. Because I have a lore guide. I have been writing a lore guide since I started, just in
That
case,
is a very smart thing to. That's a very smart thing to do. One of my favorite authors didn't do that to begin with, and he ended up having to ask his readers to help him make his lore guide later, because
wow.
he found that they remembered more of his world than he did.
Wow.
And if I remember quickly, he felt kind of embarrassed by that.
I would be too. I So let me see. Let me double check my work. Sorry if it sounds like I'm ruffling in your ear.
Oh, you're fine. So,
Okay.
so for anyone who's curious how tall Genesis and Trek are, that's how tall they are.
Yes. And bonus, they get they get the height of a character they haven't been introduced to yet.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that, but I don't think that names is really a problem, especially since you've left the stuff public.
Yes, they are public, so it's out there now. But
I'm just kind of copying things from your highlights and just showing them.
yes.
If you want me to stop, just let me know.
No, no, please go ahead. If it's
Okay.
public, then it's out there. Okay. So you start off as a cadet, and the cadets are the ones that have passed the written exam, the psychological exam, but they have to pass this physical exam at the end of their training. And once they pass, they are then a scout. And a scout is ranked 1 through 3. So you're a scout 1, then you're a scout 2, and then you're a scout 3. And scouts are usually assigned to voyagers so that they can get hands on training in the field. Um, and they're not assigned to rangers because rangers are not, they're not yet ready for the um, the responsibility of caring for a third member of their team. And so once a scout passes this, I guess you could call it fitness test, see if they can actually cut the mustard out in the field. They are then promoted to ranger, and rangers rank 4 through 7. Ranger 4, Ranger 5, Ranger 6, Ranger 7. And their missions are a little bit more involved. Most of the time, they are not lethal, but they do have a level of danger that could lead to death. But they tend to, um, yeah, their missions tend to be get this convict from point A to point B, investigate this disturbance, investigate,
Oh, oh,
you know,
you mean not life threatening, kind of like what we just read?
yes, the first chapter, um, yeah, them as
I,
rangers.
I'm
That was a
just joking. I'm just joking because in the instant review meeting they actually stated that it wasn't supposed to be dangerous.
yes, yes, but things happen, things can change very quickly.
Yep.
So, um, yeah, so rangers rank 4 through 7, and Genesis and Terra at the beginning are Rangers 6. They're Rangers at rank 6. So one more rank, and they would be promoted to Voyagers. And Voyagers rank 8 through 10, and most GIB agents tend to stay Voyagers because it is so difficult to become a journeyman.
Yeah.
And without spoiling anything, the jump from Voyager to journeyman can be very, very challenging. And yeah, so as the story progresses and as you continue to read, um, you will find out exactly why so many GIB agents stay Voyagers and why there's fewer journeymen than there are Voyagers, even though there are Voyagers that are completely capable of being journeymen, but why they have not been promoted to journeyman yet. And okay, so above the journeyman is the Pathfinder. And the Pathfinder is there's only one, and they are the head of the GIB. They oversee all the activities of the GIB. When there are things of serious concern going on, they address them, and then they send it down through the ranks. It could be just like a memo, it could be a notice, it could be um, we need to have an emergency meeting about this and we need to talk about it now. Um, and they also do make the final decision on whether or not to expel a GIB agent from the organization. They get the ultimate say. Um, not a journeyman, not a voyager. The Pathfinder is the one that reviews every single journeyman or every single agent that may be in danger of being expelled. And the Pathfinder has usually been in the organization for a long, long time, and it's the GIB is merit based and not nepotism and favoritism don't really work in the GIB. I'll say that.
Yeah. No,
So
not from what I've seen.
so if you have a cousin in the GIB, that does not guarantee that you will be able to qualify. It is your merits, your efforts, your sacrifices, and yours alone that get you in. And yeah, so as the story goes on, you will see um, people have mixed opinions about the GIB. And um, just to clarify, the GIB is not a cover for the FBI in our world. That's not who they
No,
are.
no, it is an independent organization, from what I understand.
Yes, it is very much so. And I think even in the description that I put out with their emblem and their just a little bit about their history, it states specifically that their interests are parallel to the galactic government, but they are not an instrument of the galactic government.
One sec. Take a look at this. The true justice thrives on knowledge. Which this is the one for the GIB,
Yes,
and you put out the description on it. That was founded many years ago by an Iberian war hero named Rexus Stein, which was mentioned in the chapter we just read.
yes,
So yeah, and then you got the tenets of the Galactic Investigative Bureau. I shall take no bribe, willingly serve others. Honesty is honorable, no innocent blood shall I shed. All are equal before the law. Justice is my daily bread. Give dignity to the poor, serve the weak, supplant despair with hope. When all others fall, stand for them. So
yes.
yeah,
Those are the tenets that they adhere to. Those are the tenets that they have to recite when they are inducted into the GIB, and they are expected to uphold those tenets throughout their entire service, whether they retire or they die in the in the field. So yeah, this joining the GIB is not for the faint of heart. It is not for the weak. It is not for the irresponsible. It is not for the reckless. Um, so um, just just throwaway exposition. Sometimes people will say, "Oh, I want to join the GIB. I think it'll be, I think it'll be interesting to join." And their family is like, "Are you serious? You're serious? You really?" Yeah. So just to kind of info dump a little bit, but I mean that doesn't add directly to any of the characters. It's just in this universe to kind of give you an idea of the type of organization that it is. People don't really they appreciate what the GIB does, but they would rather not do what the GIB does.
there's a lot of things in real life like that.
Yes. So you can people can relate to that sentiment. I mean, I relate to that sentiment with firemen and cops and electrical workers that climb up those 70-foot poles.
Yeah.
Um,
I wanted to mention this part, but I didn't want to interrupt you before. He was saying this would make a good GURPS campaign. If you don't know what GURPS is, and like he says, think of a D&D, but it's actually just a tabletop role playing game system, which can do anything from medieval fantasy stuff all the way through cyberpunk, dystopian future, utopian future, pretty much anything. So that's what he was saying.
oh, I see.
So yeah,
I'm having a slow.
something.
I get what you're saying.
So just wanted to give that a shout out instead of just mentioning it in the chat. So because when you're on the phone, it's a lot harder for you to look at the chat than it is for me with my laptop up here and everything.
Yeah, I have no idea what him and Natsu are saying right now. But unless you
Yeah, that's the reason why I've been popping up anything that seems to be relevant. That seems to be relevant. And whereas it's really easy on your end as a guest, I'm in the catbird seat and I have a lot of things I can do right here.
okay.
And I've just been muddling around with stuff as you've been talking.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I'm in my kitchen right now, uh, as I talk. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, without going into spoilerific territory, um, the GIB, the GIB. Let's see. Um, yeah. So when you, since you read chapter 2 this evening, um, there are things when Genesis goes to the GIB again. It may seem like a throwaway line or like it's not important, but there is something in chapter 2 that is very important. Um, when she is on her way to the review committee, and um, yeah, so it's, yeah, everything, well, not everything, not every detail isn't like, oh, pay attention to every single sentence because it means something more, not like that, but there's just some small details that are going to have more weight later, as I said before. um there are
you 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 haven't read The Wheel of Time, but The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan is kind of similar. There's tons and tons of details. Not all of them are going to be important, but you never know which one, which could be as simple as somebody seeing a flash of yellow under somebody's dress, could be extremely important later.
yeah, so when it comes to the GIB, the look at the tenets and pay attention to what they say and pay attention to what they do, because it's all gonna be very, very important um, as the story goes on, for uh, good reasons and also bad reasons. Because it's not a perfect organization, but
Nope.
I believe it is mentioned in, yeah, in the GIB description with the emblem. It's mentioned that it was founded hundreds of years ago. So I will specify on that timeline. I'll just, just a, again, just a little piece of throwaway lore to hold on to. Um, so the GIB was founded in 15,000 BCE. So it's extremely old.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I'm going to write a spin-off book about its founding. I mean, if that's something that people want, then I could consider it. Um, writing a just a very brief standalone novel about how the GIB came into existence, because it wasn't just cut and dry. Um, how it came about, like, oh, we need this for the galaxy, so let's just make this entity. It's not that simple how it came into being. And the story of Rixus Dine is, because I've already written out, like, anyone that is extreme, like, important or a titular figure in Milky Way galaxy history. I've written a backstory for them. It's not like, oh, this is just some throwaway name and they're never going to be mentioned again, or they're not that important. They're just this figure off in the background that died a long time ago. No.
Yep.
Rixus Dying definitely has a story, and um, and I made sure to write it in a way that it can be incorporated into the story without spoiling anything that happens. Even though Rixus Dying died 15,000 years ago, he's still very much relevant to the story.
Nice. And for anyone who has not already figured this out, Anjoy is kind of anal retentive in this way. She wants her world to actually be her world. So if there's something that doesn't make sense, she's going to make it make sense.
Yeah.
And she said that it's in 2180, I believe.
2186.
86. Okay. I
Yes.
knew I had the right decade when I was saying it, but I was thinking that there was probably a number at the end of it. And Spud says, I'm getting hints here. If the story includes humans and the GIB has existed for 15,000 BCE, then aliens have been exploring the Milky Way for a long time, unless you got something wrong. Nope, you didn't. You did
No.
not get anything wrong there.
No,
when
you're
she,
he's
when
absolutely
she says that we are, or the when she says that we're the new kids on the block, she means it.
yes. Because I think the hexagon has been mentioned already.
Briefly, but yes, I believe it was.
Okay. So, yeah. So the
I,
hexagon,
I, I've kind of got a little bit of streamer brain where when you're focusing on reading, you don't actually fully you comprehend the words you're reading, if that makes any sense.
yeah, I get it. But yeah. No, you're right, Spud. Um Alien,
He just to be clear, he missed like the first 40 minutes of the interview. He came in about 40 minutes and asked if I could give him the high points. I was like, no, you're gonna have to watch it. This has been an actual interview.
uh,
So that's why he's asking about things that you did mention before. He just wasn't here for the first part.
okay, I see. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah. Humans, like Net said, humans are definitely the new kid on the block. And Rixus Dine is not the first alien, you know, to create an organization. He's not the first alien that to ever exist outside of planet Earth. Um, he just so happened to be alive 15,000 years ago, but there are literally, I don't think this is too spoilery, but there are literally hundreds of thousands of years that humans were completely unaware that there were aliens that existed long before them.
Mm-hmm.
And so this so the story is basically about how humanity is finding its footing in this community that's been existing for a very, very, very long time. Because the GIB is not even one of the oldest organizations in the Milky Way galaxy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the hexagon has been around even longer than that. And it was actually in existence and when the GIB came into an existence, and it had been for a very, very long time before before the GIB was created.
And welcome, Annihilus.
Hey, and I was
So Annihilus, later on after I clip this entire interview part, you might want to come back and watch it because Joy's mentioned some things that she hasn't mentioned to us previously. So you might want to actually check it out later. Oh, and I just want to make one point in that in the after or not so saying the fucking bureaucracy. It, with how long everything's been around, this is why it's such an entrenched bureaucracy. Because things that have been around for this long end up growing bureaucracies. Just wanted to point that out.
Yes. So, to not so's frustration, um, the GIB has all this. Yes, Lars. What's Stellaris?
I am not sure, but I am assuming it's some kind of modeling program.
Ah, well, you have my permission because I have no idea what that is, but the more exposure to the universe of singularity, the better off it'll be. My intention, I'm not saying that I want millions of people to be interested in singularity. It'd just be nice to have a few hundred people interested or whatever. But knock on wood. But the more people talk about singularity, the more interested people will be in singularity. If you you mentioned the artwork or you mentioned something about the story in your posts on Twitter or whatever, then people go, what's that? So any yeah, to your heart's content, Annihilus, go right
And
ahead.
it looks like Stellaris is a sci-fi grand strategy game on the computer. So I'm assuming that since he does a lot of modding stuff, he's probably talking about kind of modding Stellaris with the stuff from here. That's my guess at least. Oh, he actually just made a comment on that. It's a fork space grand strategy game. You make a civilization, and they start off as having just achieved space travel with a few colony and science ships, and expand from there.
Oh,
Okay, and looks like CT's here. Saying hi Joy, it's me, CT-117, the crazy DCW animated Star Wars content fanboy.
hey
Hi,
there.
hi CT. And I don't know if you've ever gotten around to reading it, but like I've been poking you to, but at the very least, go back and listen to me reading both of them if you can't get around to reading it yourself.
Yes, and the interview where I've been uh I mean, yes, Annihilus, I can do that.
Cool.
Just not tonight.
No, she wasn't even intending to do this tonight. I just kind of yoinked her on.
Yes, and I happen to be in the mood to talk.
Yeah, I didn't even warn her. It just occurred to me while I was streaming that she was here. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask.
Yes, and he asked on a good day when I felt like talking because editing has been kicking my butt.
At any point you need a hand with editing, if there's something I can do, just let me know.
I definitely will. It's more so just like the idea of, okay, I don't want to change this so much that it changes the intention of what I wrote.
Oh yeah, I was yelling at you when you were starting thinking about editing stuff about that. I was like, don't you dare.
I remember that fondly.
Probably vividly, because I was kind of vociferous about it.
Yes, you were.
Early, mid, and end game crises test your diplomatic and military prowess. And yeah, if you can draw models of ships, I can take a crack at learning Solar's code base to mod them into the game. How did I guess?
Oh yeah. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I
And,
will.
and and I really have to say that for all you're being concerned about your voice is very good. you come off just fine on stream. And anything that you end up listening to this yourself and cringing, that's just the cringing that everybody has when they listen to themselves on stream.
Mhm.
That's all it's going to be because you're sounding a lot better than other people I've streamed with.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, I appreciate that, hearing that. Um, so since you have this picture up, um,
I thought you might like that one to be shown.
yes. Yeah. Wow. I posted that a long time ago.
Oh
So,
yeah, that's why the highlights was easy. I was able to flip through to flip through the stuff pretty quickly.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Let me make sure I mention that. Any artwork, concept artwork, any images created by another artist, but they help immerse you in the story, are going to be in my highlights tab on my X profile, and
And
so you get.
and Anjoy probably has not noticed this, but I've had a banner going along the bottom screen for a while, which has her username on X.
Yes, I saw that.
So anybody who is not already following her, go follow her.
Yes, please. The more traction, or the more traffic there is to Singularity, the better it'll perform. And uh, I, no matter what, um, I will be writing the second volume, no matter what.
At various points during the creation of this, and this is not a spoiler, but it's behind the scenes when she was getting low and being artists like artists are, she was going, "I'm going to delete this," and my response was, "That's fine. I have backups."
Yeah, just in case I went on a creative rage and decided to just delete it all. He
Yeah,
has back.
and at that point, I don't think I was already actively making the PDF, so I don't think you actually realized I'd backed everything up.
No, I hadn't. Not until you told me.
Yeah, I was like,
And
"Yeah, it's right there."
oh yes, Darth, I will be using Blender because those images you see on the screen, I cannot do that. I'll just tell you that now.
By the way, the main reason why I no longer cringe at my own voice is that even before I was doing YouTube, I've actually given in speeches at seminars, and I've also taught classes and heard myself on recordings. So eventually, if you do it enough, you just stop worrying about it.
Yeah, I mean it's just those initial, because I've done
Yeah.
I've done a few YouTube videos and did voiceover recordings, and I tried to make sure everything was just right, and it still sounded horrible, like I was talking through an asparagus. But
Yeah, you've done a few, but when I say that I've done a lot, let's go take a look at my YouTube channel. How many streams have I done?
yes,
Yeah,
but
let's see here. It says, oh, it's not actually showing me here. It's over 1,000.
oh, you should be totally used to voice now.
Yes, I just throw I just start streaming a game and I start playing a game and I go, oh, what the hell? I'm going to stream it to the audience. Yeah, I'm very not self conscious about my voice for the most part.
That's good. That's very good. But yeah, focusing on these images that you see on the screen. Um, so Singularity is both utopian and dystopian. They coexist, and sometimes they commingle, and sometimes they don't. So this is where It's similar to Mass Effect. If you look at the differences between Omega and the Citadel, one kind of dystopian, the other kind of looks utopian. But even there's even parts of the Citadel that are kind of run down, and I believe it's mentioned in the third game. But there are orphans on the Citadel that hide in the
In the
exhaust
ducts.
pipe and the
Yep.
tunnels and everything.
Oh yeah.
So even though the Citadel is bright and it's clean and full of shops and rich people and all these places to eat and hang out, you still see bits and pieces of its darker underbelly um, in certain missions. Yes, you're right, Annihilus. It's utopian for those who are well to do. Absolutely. And so the world of Singularity kind of mirrors that, um, especially on planets where there are large metropolitans. Um, so like Millennia, the city where the Hexacon headquarters or the Spire, it's called the Spire, um, where the Spire is, where the GIB is. It's much so upbuilt, updated. Everything's new. Um, they make sure that the waterways are clean. They make sure the streets are clean because not only is it the galactic hub, it is also a very touristy attraction, and um, so they have to show people this is this is who we are. This is what we do. But unfortunately, um, there are parts of the galaxy that the Hexacon has neglected or they overlook. And yes, not so you are right. The future of Singularity is as screwed and unscrewed as our modern world. But um it's also in the world of Singularity, it's also a little bit easier to get out of poverty than it is in our world. Um and it has to do more so with the fact that most species have had to set aside their petty differences within their societies so that they could become spacefaring. So, with Iberians, you're talking about a very, very ancient species that had to learn how to get along with one another. The Bacarians, they had to learn how to get over their own stuff. And it was important for them to do that so that they could survive. And when we meet humanity in Singularity in 2186, humanity has learned that too. And so you will see more of what it is that humanity had to endure in the next volume and in volume 3 and in volume 4, and without being super exposition heavy, you'll start to put it together yourself what
Hmm.
happened. Their their past mirrors our present Earth.
Yes.
So, World War One happened, World War Two happened, um, the Gulf War, the Persian War, um, Desert Storm, all of that happened. But up till about, let's see, I'll say like up till about 1990, everything is the same. You get to 1990, and then things just get very, very different. And in that way, that's how Singularity becomes cyberpunk. The year 1990 is when things really start to change, and everything after that, it changes by leaps and bounds. And the Earth that we know is not the Earth that they knew in 1990. So between 1990 and 2186, so much has happened to humanity, and it's so different from what we have experienced between 1990 and 2024. And you're going to be like, okay, I would gladly take this reality over that one.
Yep.
Because, um, yeah, just much like humanity in Mass Effect, we don't really spend a whole lot of time on Earth in Mass Effect, but you kind of get the idea that disease, cancer, and all of that has been wiped out in Mass Effect. Like, everyone basically lives well. Oh, that's
Hmm.
interesting about Babylon 5.
Yep. That's why I was just leaving it up there. I thought you might like to see that. Babylon 5, which Mass Effect was inspired by, was also utopian and dystopian. 5 mile long space station in neutral territory. In Brown and Gray sector in particular. That's where a lot of Babylon 5's black market found life. You're definitely right about that. And then also saying Babylon 5 was Mass Effect before Mass Effect.
Yes, I have.
And I'm gonna and I know what your response to this one is. You are, as far as you've told me, you are definitely intending to make physical book if at all possible.
Absolutely. There, when I'm done editing, there will be a crowdfunding campaign so that it can fund the printing of the book, both soft cover and hardcover. And of course, there will be a digital version, but the digital version will not. Um, so the digital version will just be chapters 1 through 19 and the epilogue. The physical copy, I'm going to try my best to put some artwork in there for the physical copy. And the artwork is more than likely going to be in black and white, because if all goes well or exceeds my expectations, um, there will be an art book, and the
Mm-hmm.
art book color.
And I just want to quickly answer to Shamangla. This is the book. The first 50 minutes or so was me reading the second chapter. And at that point, I just kind of dragged the author of the book, Anjoy, who's talking to me right now, on. And we randomly talked for about like 10, 15 minutes. And now we're getting the author actually talking about the writing of the book. So, yeah.
Yes, you are right, Nihilus.
Now, as far as this goes, it all depends. Do I prefer reading a physical book? Yes. However, and I don't always have the luxury of being able to carry my library with me, unless as we're talking about my digital library, in which case I carry about 1,000 books in my pocket.
Well, yeah,
So it all depends on what you're valuing at the moment, which one is better,
yeah. If you're constantly on the move, yeah, that makes sense.
which I am.
Yeah, you get a pass.
I mean, you've seen me just wandering around. I mean, not physically seen me, but you've known that I'm just bouncing from one place to another, and
Yeah,
I'm just interacting while doing that stuff. And guess what? A
yeah,
physical book doesn't work so well for that.
yeah. It wouldn't make sense for you to be walking around with a big old library on your back.
Yep. Never mind the fact I do have a library at home. I don't know many people who read more books than I do than I have.
Definitely. um, Patreon.
I don't think that she exactly has plans on how she's doing the crowdfunding quite yet.
Yeah, I have no idea yet. But I will.
Mm-hmm.
I will consider Patreon.
Oh, nice. And thank you for coming. And I hope you like the third chapters, bud.
Yes, thank you for stopping by.
Not so you have no idea how many things I have in both physical and digital. I have a lot in both formats. It's not necessarily that your grammar sucks, it's that your typing sucks. This is what I meant. He's saying, why not both? Buy physical or digital, then buy both, then correct it himself. And then he says grammar sucks. That's why I'm saying, no, just your typing. Which, by the way, I don't care. I'm just joking. Yes, you do
Yeah.
have a Star Wars library. We're not going to discuss how on stream. Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Oh,
Okay.
and fun Easter egg for everybody. One of the characters in this book was named somewhat to spite me. The joke's on her, though. I absolutely love that she did it.
Yes. Yeah. Without going into spoilerific territory for those who haven't read it yet. Um, yes, there is a character that I intentionally included just as a proverbial pie to Net's face.
And anybody who's watched me play enough Dark Souls will probably be able to guess which character it is because I have a particular naming convention that I tend to use.
Yes, I
Which,
adhere. I adhere to it, even though um, it may not necessarily fit in this world, but you know the possibilities are endless in singularity. Anything can happen.
oh
So
yeah.
when you meet this character, you will know for sure who it is.
Mm-hmm. Especially with not so saying that.
Oh my gosh. She definitely lives up to her name.
Yes.
And I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say that um, she is a recurring character.
Yeah. So yeah, and I've also pulled up your drawing of Genesis. Would you let me show that one?
Oh, I didn't even talk about these images here.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Oh, okay.
I've got lots of tabs open.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, these images just kind of give you an idea of what the worlds in Singularity look like. Um, so people, so every species has a distinctive ship design. Um, and when I get around to drawing the ships, I it will be obvious that they are, like the Vrock are, and I do believe I have brief descriptions of each species in my highlights tab. So it's not spoilery if I explain it here, but
Yeah, yep, yes, you do. I was considering actually linking that below my below my the post for for the stream.
okay, cool. So yeah, so the Vrock are basically the tanks of the universe. Of course, there are alien species that are bigger than them, heavier than them, fiercer than them. But as far as um, like species that are recognized by the hexagon as being a part of the hexagon controlled space, um, the Vrock are the big guns. So they are very sturdy, very strong people. And I do believe I put the stats for their species in a highlight in my highlights tab, but they are very very tall, um, and they are very strong, and they have a distinct dermal plating, so that they are technically bulletproof. Um, but you will meet more of this species as the story goes on. And of course, there are the Bacarians and the Iberians, but their ship design speaks to their culture. And as you learn about their cultures, their distinct cultures, you'll see why their ships are designed the way that they are. And, so this ship on the bottom right is kind of where I was going with Genesis ship, but her ship is not as polished as that. Um, it's a little bit more. Let's see, how would I say this? Okay, okay. This is actually funny, but so if it's 2024 and you have a brand new car, her ship would essentially be like a 2002 Toyota Camry. So, um,
So,
you
so
know,
yeah, a blown up version of it for you.
yes, thank you. So, yeah, her ship, it is human made. It was originally intended for like cargo pickups. So, it is not as aerodynamic as other ships. Um, it is a little bit heavy on the heavy side. It's on the sturdy side, so it could hold its own in a firefight, but it is not the type of ship that you won't want to take into a firefight. Um,
You can survive a firefight in it, but you don't. But it's not one of those things that you really want to do it in.
yeah, you wouldn't want it to be your first choice if you have to go into a fight. But yeah, it's more of an industrial class ship. And then of course, oh yeah, yeah. And then that ship, of course, is more for like leisure and luxury. So a ship like this is not going to have any guns. It's not going to have it's going to have shields, but it's not going to have um kinetic shielding that is usually um installed on fighter planes. And these are usually low altitude, so they are not for spacefaring, and that's going to be obvious in the ship designs when I get around to creating them, because there are different ship classes. There are leisure ships, there are luxury ships, there are cargo ships, there are combat ships, there are medical rigs, and they will all have distinctive appearances. It's not like everyone's driving around in the same thing in the galaxy. So no, I really do want this world or this universe to be very distinctive in how everything looks. And so the environments are going to be very very different, even if they are described as metropolises, like Millennia and Avrilla. Avrilla is mentioned because that is where Bohr and Genesis live. That's the planet that they live on. They do not live on Eon. Avrilla has its own metropolis, but it does not look like Millennia. And then, of course, you're introduced to Paris City in the first chapter, and it's basically a desolate wasteland because the planet is basically turning into a giant desert.
It's turning into Dune.
Yes, very much so. But if you pay attention to the details in the writing, it says, or I think Tarek mentions it to Genesis, that not everyone left the planet. Some went underground.
I did catch that.
So, yes, even though sometimes characters say things and they it's very deliberate and it's like never say never. So,
Yep.
uh,
Hmm.
and the image that's on the screen now, that's kind of what Avrilla looks like. Or is that, I think that's Curiath.
That one's Kiriath. Yeah, Kiriath.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
a
So that's,
it's a city named Jor Arim on the planet Kiriath.
yes. So Jor Arim is another city, and it's very distinctive. It does not look like, so Millennia is like, let's see, it's like New York City on steroids. Millennia. It's a huge. It's not a planet that's a city like Coruscant. It's not like that, but it is a very, very large metropolis, and 1.6 billion people live.
It looks like it's a vertical city, basically. I mean, when I say vertical, I mean like skyscrapers and stuff.
Yes, yes. Millennia is very much so a city where people live vertically as opposed to horizontally. Now, there are people that do live, they're on the, they walk around on the ground, on the surface of the planet, but there's also a lot of activity that goes on above their heads. It's
Makes
not like,
sense.
yeah, it's not like there's just offices upon offices upon offices and penthouses up there. um, it is very much so very busy, and it's very much so like the mega cities from Judge Dredd, but not as rundown and dystopian as Judge Dredd mega cities. So, so it's the so some of the residences in Millennia um, will have a central courtyard, and then there'll be apartments above several stories of shops. There's grocery stores. um there might even be like a hollow film theater. There's no DVDs, no Blu-rays, no digital, nothing. It's hollow. It's all hollow film. The internet is called the HoloNet. It's not the internet, it's not Wi-Fi, it is the HoloNet, because they aliens have refined quantum technology so that if you can receive information instantaneously as if you are there when it as it's unfolding, like it's like going live.
Quantum tunneling is fun.
Yeah.
I think you and I might have talked about that a little bit as you were coming up with that, because I
Yes.
actually know because I know quite a bit about that I because I actually know a little bit about quantum computing. So
Yes. So they have basically perfected being able to send information across the galaxy instantaneously.
yep.
So, um, if you're at the core of the Milky Way, you could send someone a message on the outer rim of the Milky Way and they'll get it within a few minutes. So that's why everything has been converted to the HoloNet. And that's what
Hmm.
and that's what connects everybody. But yes, you will find,
It's like the force. It's the thing that binds us.
yes,
surrounds us.
Yes.
Sorry.
But yeah, so there are some metropolises that are very New Yorkish with all the advertisements going up into the sky and very festive, very busy. They never sleep. But then there also are metropolises where it's like, okay, it's 10 p.m., turn everything off, time to go to bed. And, you know, so they're very unique. But Millennia is definitely the central hub um, of the Singularity universe. And I'll say this now, Millennia has been around for, uh,
Millennials?
yes, it's one of the oldest cities in the galaxy. It is,
I honestly, I said that jokingly, but that is kind of what I took from the name when I first read it. It was probably called Millennia because it's been around for millennia.
yes, yes. It's actually, I'm not going to put an exact number on it because, spoilerific territory, but
Yeah, I've been trying to leave any spoilers that you want to make up to you. So I've been trying to limit myself to earlier stuff that I'd say,
mhm,
but whatever you want to share, you go right
yeah. Okay.
ahead.
Millennia is actually closer to being like 2 million years old.
Nice.
Yeah. So millennia is it's a very, very, very old city. And the fact that it's still around shows how important it is. And when Genesis is going to millennia, there are some superstructures that surround the planet. And that is a testimony to how old the planet is. And those superstructures are more important than you think.
If they have survived, I would imagine so.
Hmm?
I said if they have survived, I imagine so.
Yes. So, without going again, without going into spoiler territory, um, every that the details are deliberate with that. Okay, more images. Yes, yes, yes.
Yep,
Yeah. So
you were talking about more of the planets, so I thought that I'd pull up the other one that was showing planetary images.
yeah. So the image in the bottom left that kind of gives you an idea of what the spire looks like. Um, and that is where the hexagon does all their business. They do all the deliberating. Um, and it's not just the yeah, perfect. Um, but there's yeah, it's surrounded by a larger body of water, and um, they so the spire was not there 2 million years ago. I'll say that when millennia was established as a city, the spire was not there. So there's a bit of lore behind that. Again, um, that I will not go into because it will be revealed in the writing later.
Okay. Shall I pull up another one?
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. So, like I mentioned before, not all planets are built up and metropolitan and glitzy and glammy and full of life and everything. Some planets have been forgotten by the hexagon, like I mentioned before, and they've basically been left to defend themselves. And this is kind of where the grim dark future comes into play, like, like in Warhammer. Um, and
Oh,
so there,
I am not completely. Oh, the QEC is in the as in the quantum stuff. Sorry, I'll try to figure out what he meant by QEC. So quantum something something.
Quantum and
Quantum entanglement. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
yeah,
You go ahead. I just wanted to acknowledge. I hate not acknowledging people in the chat.
yeah. I appreciate it when you bring up the uh, what's it called? When you bring
They're just chats. I don't have super chats or anything like that.
okay, but still, there's sometimes I can't see the questions or
Oh
um,
no, I know, but you're, like I said, you're on a computer. You're not on a computer. You don't have a very large screen, so for you to actually see the chat, it's a pain in the ass.
yeah. So I appreciate you putting it up there so I can address it. But
Mhm.
so you're gonna have planets that are inhabited, but they're very sparsely or sparsely, whatever, um inhabited, and not every star system has a new sun. So there will be some planets that do have an old they have a you know they have an old sun, they have an old star, and um there are and I do have a map of all the you don't have to pull it up, but I do have a map of all of the um all of the star systems that have been charted, but that doesn't mean that aren't any other star systems in Singularity. Those are just the ones recognized by Hexagon Space.
Let's see. There's a lot in here, so I don't have everything pulled up.
No, it's okay. I, it's This is not a slideshow presentation, and you're the tech.
And just like you didn't have any prep on this, I didn't do any prep for this part of it either.
Yeah, I didn't expect to talk for an hour and 45 minutes either.
Yeah, I was intending to just have you come on and say hi, let people hear who you were.
And then people went up, and now it's like, oh no, I can't just leave them hanging.
Yep. So shall I show a picture of Genesis?
Um, is there anyone in the chat that has not seen her?
Well, it's not just current chat. I mean, other people are going to see when we cut this out.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. That's right. You can if you want to.
Yeah, here we go. And this was drawn by Joy.
Yes, I drew that.
Yep, and
uh,
I would like to point out that Joy is also the person who has made my avatars. Like in the upper right hand corner, you can see my Battle Cat avatar, and if you look at me in my trench coat, that's my avatar over me. The person in the trench coat actually is me, by the way.
yes, filling your
So
identity.
so she is the one who does her own art. The other stuff was just stuff that was inspiring her, but this is actually what she has done herself.
Yes, and interesting fact about creating Genesis. Um, Darth. um, that comment's actually pretty funny. Um,
To get away, yeah.
oh no. Um, so when it came to Genesis creation, I wanted to create a character that doesn't look like anybody. And sometimes when people create characters, they're like, "Oh, it like Captain America was inspired by not Robert Redford. Oh, glasses. I can't remember that
Don't
actor.
lose those.
Yeah, I need to see. But I think it is Robert Redford. I think, yeah, Captain America was inspired by Robert Redford. When they when they created Captain America, they said we want him to look like Robert Redford, and um, I didn't want that with Genesis. I didn't want anyone to say, "Oh, she looks like this actress," or "Oh, she looks like that actress," or this. It's like, no. I wanted her to have her own unique look, and um, while she may have been inspired by certain characters, like I mentioned before, she was inspired by Ripley in partially inspired by Ripley. I didn't want her to look like Ripley
Yeah.
because I want her to have her own unique identity to the story. So when they look at her, I don't want people to say, "Oh, this is like an alien story because she looks like Sigourney Weaver." I don't know. I don't want that kind of uh, parallel to exist because while there are elements of Alien that are going to be present in in the story, it's not a carbon copy of Alien.
Hmm. Cool.
Yeah, trying to find out what she was going to look like. It took me about 3 weeks to determine um, what she was going to look like because there were several other versions of her and it just didn't feel right. So this is going to be her final design. And if anything, pictures of her are just going to get more realistic.
Cool. So, so now it's saying there's no shame in taking inspiration from something or having influenced by the other sci-fi, and I don't think that that's what you're saying. You're it sounds to me like you're just saying you want herself to seem like like her own person, not that you have a problem with being inspired by, say, Ripley.
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Um, no, she's inspired. Um, no, uh, no, Singularity wouldn't exist without Mass Effect. If I was trying to do my own thing completely, then I wouldn't have written anything. Um, yeah, there.
Everything comes from something. That's one of the biggest things that my wife likes to say. If a lot of times that if you start getting too worried about, oh no, is it too much like something else? Well, a lot of things have that happen, but we need Tolkien to have other things that have piggyback forward. Mm.
Yeah, yes. So yes, Singularity um, was inspired by Mass Effect. It was inspired by Alien. It was inspired by Warhammer. It was inspired by Terminator. It was inspired by uh, Cyberpunk Red. It was inspired by a lot of science fiction that came before. I have no problem in admitting that. Um, More Genesis for not so fun over. um, well, if if I do get around to it, I do want to create a calendar, and the calendar would have uh, unique images of Genesis. Um, I know that Natso is a man's man, and he has been asking for pictures of Genesis in leisure wear. So
Yes, yes.
I I will make that happen. I will. I promise. I promise. I will make that happen. Um, and then of course there are other female characters. For all you furries out there, uh, there are other female characters that will be. There will be concept art of them, and there are also other human female characters that are introduced in the first volume, and there will be more characters that come in the second volume that weren't in the first volume. So, um,
He's he said that a while ago.
yeah, Yes. Um, as far as them furry, they're actually not. They're no none of them. They don't have fur. They actually don't. None of them.
Okay.
Ernac Ernacs are basically reptilian armadillo gerbils, and um, and so more reptilian than anything, and so they have no fur. Bacarians, they have no fur. They just have spots on their skin and spikes. And Iberians, they don't have any fur. They could grow beards, but no, as far as like hair is concerned, they are all smooth skinned. Um, but what's it called? Female Iberians do have hair on top of their head, but they're not furry. They have skin like bare skin like humans. I wanted to make sure, like, even though, what is that? Why'd you put that up?
That's a picture of one of your big bad guys.
No. Uh,
There's a character by the name of that guy's race that I just in my head that's what I see whenever the character comes up.
and that is not the least bit intimidating. And
I've been torturing her with that one.
yes, and pay no mind to him because the character is actually very foreboding and very scary and very intimidating. He's not a stalk of broccoli. Will there be an Easter eggs of the most glorious biotic god?
Mass Effect reference.
Yes. Yes. We don't have bear skin. Yes, I know. Some of us look like Magilla Gorilla. Um, some of us are very furry, but no, they are smooth skinned aliens. They are not hairy aliens because the environments of their home planets are not conducive to hair. And yeah, hair, furry, being hairy and fuzzy and all this stuff, it's really not conducive to space travel.
That's why you put hats on and things.
I guess.
Okay. So I think that covers a lot more than I expected to.
Yeah, uh, I was not expecting to do all of this. I guess you could call it exposition.
Yeah, I'm just going to call it an interview.
Yeah, it can be considered an interview. I haven't given anything away that's spoilerific, so
No,
um, but
so
just
I'm probably going to end the stream, but I'd like you to stick around so we can talk for a moment before I let you go.
me.
Yeah, just basically don't go anywhere until I tell you.
Okay, well, final thoughts or closing thoughts. Thank you to everybody that tuned in and um. Okay. Okay. Oh,
And thank you, Alice.
thanks, Dart.
Okay, so now your final thoughts.
Okay, so thank you to everybody that tuned in to listen to me ramble on and on about this fictional universe in my head. Um, the first volume will be available hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It depends on how quickly I can get the editing done and then get around to crowdfunding the publishing of the book for physical copies for those that want them. There definitely will be a second volume. I am developing the plot for it right now. There'll be artwork to come, concept art of the planets and the ships and everything. And just make sure that you tell all your friends that like science fiction, they like sci-fi fantasy, they like adventure, mystery, in a futuristic setting. Make sure you tell them about Singularity because I am an indie author and I'm not a part of a publishing house. I don't have any famous people backing me or anything like that. So word of mouth is how this is going to get spread, and this is how independent projects by other authors and artists and video game developers. This is how it gets out there. This is how it gets traction. Is word of mouth. So make sure you share. Um, Singularity being released very soon with as many people as you can. Every effort is greatly appreciated. I'm very excited about its official release. Um, so far, the reception has been, it exceeds my expectations. So I am very grateful to everyone that has taken the time to read Singularity and even be remotely interested in it. But there's definitely more to come.
Cool. And for anyone who didn't notice, I just put the thumbnail of this of the stream on the stream, so a little bit of inception there. So yeah, thank you to everybody who's been here watching and listening, and I hope that people stick around for the rest. So with that, I'm going to end the stream, and we'll talk in just a moment. Enjoy. Boop. End stream.